All right, for more reaction to this, we'll bring in our panelists today. We have Betsy McCoy, former Lieutenant Governor of New York, Bill McGinley, former White House cabinet member, and Rebecca Walser, president of Walser Wealth Management. Good to see all three of you here.
As we heard in John Gizzi's report, Secretary of State Antony Blinken releasing a statement, in fact, in connection to the announcement. He said this in part, quote, "As the president has repeatedly made clear, great nations such as ours do not hide from our shortcomings. They acknowledge them openly and strive to improve with transparency. I urge all UN member states to join the United States in this effort and confront the scourge of racism, racial discrimination, and xenophobia." Betsy McCoy, will go straight to you. Your thoughts on the UN probe to investigate racism in the U.S.?
Well, the United Nations Human Rights Council is simply an anti-American propaganda machine. Its 47 members include Cuba, Venezuela, and China. And in past reports, they've given high marks, believe it or not, to countries like North Korea and Iran. So the Biden administration's invitation shows shocking, disgraceful, shameful naivete and obsequiousness to this corrupt organization.
Rebecca, your thoughts on this? Obviously, Betsy, rightfully so, mentions Cuba. Clearly, we know what's happening in Cuba. Tens of thousands protesting there for so many different reasons. Obviously, the ones we've seen the most, which would be freedom for mainstream media. They call that anti-government. But again, that's what they're looking for. Why not put out a statement calling for the UN to investigate that? Instead of focusing on racism here in the United States? Why is that priority one? What makes it priority one?
Oh, wow, Sean, that's a lot. Well, I think Pitbull and his tweet this morning or yesterday about Cuba speaks a lot towards Cuba. And, you've got a lot of these countries, Venezuela, Cuba, that are communist regimes, that the people don't even have food and they're taking to the street. And our mainstream media is basically trying to say that this is something else. This is about, them not having enough coronavirus shots. It's a joke. But what I want to say, though, is I don't think any American thought they were voting for a world government when they voted for this administration. And that's what we're getting. Between the tax policy of Janet Yellen going to global G20 and 130 countries around the world to get a global minimum tax, so there could be no more tax havens, and then this, actually inviting the UN into the United States to our business to discuss whether or not we have human rights when traditionally, not in the last 18 months, but traditionally we have been one of the freest and fairest societies in the world, is totally ridiculous. And if you look at the UN and the World Health Organization, and we're supposed to believe anything these people say when China is the one running the actual investigation into the China virus? I mean, this is absolutely unacceptable. We are being taken over by a globalist government of one world, and that is not what this country stands for or voted for. We are supposed to be the beacon on the hill, and this is not going in the right direction. It's totally unacceptable. And Americans must rise up and say, absolutely not. We are America first. We do not answer to the United Nations.
America first. That sounds familiar from the previous administration. And of course, what we're seeing now, the steps under the Biden administration, is opposite what we saw from Donald Trump. And Bill McGinley, I'll ask you what you think the Biden administration's end goal really is by making this move with the UN.
They're trying to tear down the American system and restructure it the way that they want it to be, which is why you see this coupled with the infrastructure bill that isn't an infrastructure bill, but is a massive tax increase and a redistribution of wealth and a generational redistribution of wealth. You see it with the foreign policy that they're enacting and the fact that we're inviting international organizations in here to tell us about our domestic policies is really a situation where, Secretary Blinken needs to step back and realize he is the United States Secretary of State. He is not the Secretary of State of the United Nations or an international coalition. We need these representatives and these individuals to be putting the American people, the American economy, and the American interests first, so that we can actually be the beacon of hope and the shining city on the hill that we have been in the past. By trying to tear us down and make us equal with some of the other regimes around the world that don't have the Bill of Rights that we have enshrined in our Constitution, the constant conversations that we have out in the open to improve our country and our society is really a shame. And we need to get back to America principles and ideals first those should be exported around the world. We shouldn't be importing the world's mistakes into our domestic policy.
Betsy, let me end on you. Let's hit you with some context. You and moderators are usually brought in to probe human rights abuses in third world countries. The United States is not a third world country. Are there human rights abuses here, Betsy? Number two, in an investigation, you have an investigation. Let's just walk it down. If you have an investigation, then you have consequences. What happens? They find racism. Then do you go to racism jail? I know I'm making light of it, but I don't understand where this investigation leads to. Do you?
You're not making light of it. They're going to use this investigation as a justification to go to Congress and pass a bill for reparations. That is their end goal. And let me point out that in the interim, our lives are at stake because this globalist mentality, this saying that we have to abide by the rules of the UN or the World Health Organization, you have Biden's health people saying, we're not going to okay booster shots for people whose immunity is diminishing until we give vaccines to the rest of the world. That is why the CDC, the FDA, and Fauci are giving us double talk about the boosters, because they want to send 500 million doses to the World Health Organization. They want Fauci said on television, he wants people in the rest of the world to be vaccinated before Americans get those boosters. We paid for them. We developed these drugs. We get them first.
Why don't you just invite the United Nations to investigate what's happening with Britney Spears, if you want to talk about human rights abuse?
Yeah, great point. Absolutely. Again, a big bipartisan issue there. Okay, Betsy McCoy, Bill McGinley, Rebecca Walser, please stick around. Another topic to get to on the other side of the break.
Yeah.